stand.
Yeah, and I just got handed some questions that are somewhat corollaries to that last question, so I'm going to go ahead and ask these. You have both been supportive of SRO, school resource officers. In the last few months, a quick Google search produces 2 unfortunate incidences of law enforcement weapons being fired near students. Question 1, is it wise to bring more law enforcement and more guns into schools? Question 2, do you support providing Know Your Rights training to students if SROs are present at schools? And I can repeat that second one if you need me to after you do
Yeah, what was the first one again?
More
SROs?
Is it wise to bring more law enforcement and more guns into schools?
Well, certainly not more guns into schools, I can tell you that. I mean, certainly the guns with teachers' bills have been those that I've helped kill at the legislature over the last 6 years. Very much opposed to that. I think that if there is to be weapons in schools, or if there are to be weapons in schools, it should be a trained school resource officer that has them. Now, this last year we debated giving more money from the state to school districts, particularly for SRO programs. And we came to the conclusion that we should fund training to make training better, and also for security programs and actual hardening of security in schools, but not more SROs. And the very reason was because people were very sensitive to the fact that you don't want to over-police a school. You don't want to have a huge police presence at a school. That's disconcerting to kids, particularly younger kids. So we want to have a good balance. I don't know exactly what the balance is for every school. There are plenty of schools here in Boulder County, and I don't want to speak for the schools. But I do know that we shouldn't be arming teachers. We should leave that to the professionals, which are the school resource officers, and do the best we possibly can with their training. What was the second question?
Part 2, do you support providing Know Your Rights training to students if SROs are present at schools?
Of course. This is good training for students. It's good training for adults. And it's good training for the SROs. We want to make sure that the police always are upholding rights of kids and adults alike. And sometimes we all need to be reminded exactly what those are, and there's no harm in continuing to repeat those. So, of course, more information is good. Transparency is good. And the more opportunities that we can use to educate our kids and educate our adults are a good thing.
At a time where we see mass shootings at schools, and I'm answering questions from the community about arming teachers, yes, I'm generally supportive of SROs being in the schools. We currently do not have an SRO in every school in Boulder Valley School District and St. Vrain Valley School District. And the reason we don't is because of funding shortages. So if the schools and the parents want SROs in the school, I certainly support that, and I agree that having someone trained who knows how to use a firearm in the school, given the challenges and tragedies we face as a country right now, it's appropriate. But I think that question goes to a deeper issue, which is, do we want to see our youth criminalized? And to me, the answer is no. We don't want to see juveniles being criminalized at a young age. When we were young, if you got into a fist fight in school, not that I did, of course, but if we did, it was broken up, you walked away, maybe you got detention. You aren't being arrested. So we should have SROs who are trained and skilled and designated in working with kids. We don't over-criminalize their behavior. It's the same reason we set up that sexting program. The more we criminalize youth at a young age, the more we set up this school to jail to prison pipeline. And I think that's a failure for us as a society. So we need to continue to recruit outstanding men and women in law enforcement who want to be SROs. Whether or not, to the second question, whether or not there's an SRO in the school, I think students should know their rights when it comes to dealing with law enforcement. So regardless of whether there's an SRO there, I think students should know their rights and how to handle themselves when they're on the street with the police, which is why from a very early time in my career, I have volunteered to go into the schools time and time and time again, in a community where people did not trust law enforcement and did not trust prosecutors, to talk to kids about those issues and help them understand what they can expect from the police on the street and how to handle it when the police violate those expectations and the laws, and to avoid themselves from getting into greater trouble on a dark street, but to never let police misconduct go without being reported. And getting out there in the schools is something I've done my entire career. I received an award for it from the New York City Bar Association, and I've continued to do it out here, because I think students should know their rights. Thank you.
So Michael,